Co-op games are built on a simple promise. You and someone else on the same couch against the same screen. 2 health bars, 2 sets of lives, and 2 chances to mess up and laugh about it. Some of the cartridges in my archive were never meant to be played alone. Arcade conversions, licensed brawlers, bright plastic dreams of perfect Saturday afternoons. They were designed around the sound of 2 controllers clicking at once. You've heard about games that won't let you leave, or that follow you into adulthood with questions you don't have answers for. You've heard about games that know more about the player than it was told, or about pause screens that keep a shape in the glass after you pull the plug. This story sits a little further down the shelf, past the grey rectangles and into the purple button years. It comes on a Super Nintendo cart, in a living room where the carpet had permanent impressions from 2 boys sitting in the same spots for years. For them, the game was simple. Pick your turtle, share a pizza, and shout the lines from the cartoon. Player 1 and Player 2 side by side in front of the console, side by side on the screen. Then time did what time does. The world moved forward. A truck that didn't stop. The game didn't get the memo. What follows is not about a high score or a secret level or a name burned into the phosphor. It's about a second player who refused to back out to the title screen. About the place beside you that's never quite vacant, that stays taken long after it should be. This is Ryan's story. The space beside you.
By the time we wore the sticker off the front of the cartridge, Turtles in Time had basically become a second language between me and Logan. This was early to mid-90s suburbia. It was the kind of neighborhood where the streetlights came on at the same time every night, and your parents didn't ask whose house you were at as long as you showed up for dinner. We were 13 when we got our hands on it. Logan's mom bought it secondhand from the strip mall video place down the road. It came in one of those oversized plastic cases with the cracked hinge and the faded label. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time. We carried it like it was sacred. We had rituals. I don't mean that in the horror movie way, I mean the kid kind. We'd drag the coffee table back so we could sit closer to the TV. We'd argue about who got to be first player, even though we both knew I always ended up as player 1 because I owned the console. Logan always played as Mikey because he liked nunchucks, and I always picked Leo because dual-wielding katana blades is badass. We'd split a bag of pizza rolls and burn our mouths because we never waited long enough. If you never played it, it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up. You punch foot soldiers until they explode, you throw them at the screen, you fight goofy bosses, and time travel through absurd cartoon versions of history. It's bright, fast, and loud. When you're a kid, it feels infinite. Spending a few hundred hours with somebody in the same split piece of fiction, you start to learn the way they move without looking. Logan always double-tapped jump. Always. Even when it didn't help. He'd waste specials on trash enemies because it made the turtle dash across the screen. He had this habit of circling around my turtle. I never asked why, it was just a thing he did. I didn't think about any of that until after the accident. The last normal time we played, we didn't know it was the last normal time. We were halfway through Neon Knight Riders, the future stage, when Logan said, "Dude, imagine we're still doing this when we're like 30. He said it like 30 was ancient. I laughed and said, "Yeah, 2 old guys on a couch fighting robots." 2 weeks later, he died on a Sunday night when a pickup truck ran a red light. Grief is boring in the day and unbearable at night. In daylight, it was casseroles and people talking too softly. At night, it turns your room into a trap, and your brain does this thing where it keeps reaching for the last time you felt normal. The night after the funeral, I couldn't sleep. To be honest, I hadn't really slept well since the accident. I remember staring at the ceiling and thinking about nothing over and over, like a scratched CD skipping. At some point, I got up, walked into the living room, and turned on the SNES. I don't remember deciding to do it. I just remember the sound of the TV warming up, that faint, high whine, and the red power light coming on. I pushed the cartridge in. I hit power. The title screen came up like it always did. Then the menu appeared. 1 player, then 2 players. Normally, the little cursor starts on 1 player by default. That's just how those games work. It assumes you're alone until you prove otherwise. This time, the arrow was already on 2 players. It blinked there, patient, like it had been waiting. I tapped up on the D-pad. The arrow clicked back down. I tapped up again, harder. It slid right back to 2 players. I want to be very clear. I checked the room. I looked under the coffee table like a second controller could be hiding there. I looked at the couch. I looked behind the TV. There was no one. Only 1 controller was plugged in. The second port was empty. I think I stared at that empty port for a long time. Then, because my brain was on autopilot and grief makes you do strange things, I hit start. The character select screen popped up. Leonardo was highlighted for player 1 like always. The player 2 cursor flicked to Michelangelo. Then it selected him. No input from the empty port, no second controller, just a quick little movement and a click, like a menu decision made by someone who knew exactly what they wanted. My skin prickled, not in a supernatural way, in a "this is wrong and my body noticed before my brain did" way. I told myself it was a glitch. I told myself the cartridge was dirty. I told myself maybe something in the controller port was shorting and sending signals. Then the level loaded, and Mikey moved. At first it was subtle. He followed me the way a second player follows you when it's AI controlled. He lagged a little behind, then caught up. He jumped over enemies at the wrong time and threw foot soldiers into the foreground. And then, exactly the way Logan always did, he ran a quick circle around my turtle when I stopped moving, like he was checking on me, like he was waiting for me to get my life together. I stood there with my thumb hovering over the D-pad, watching Michelangelo idle beside me. His tiny sprite shifted his weight, his nunchucks bounced. It's one thing to remember someone's voice. It's another thing to see their habits show up in a place where they shouldn't exist. I should have turned the console off right then. I didn't. Instead, I played. Night after night, I played. I came home from school, pretended to do homework, ate dinner without tasting it, and waited for my parents to go to bed so I could sit alone in the living room and boot up that cartridge. Player 2 always picked Michelangelo. Player 2 always moved like Logan. Sometimes he'd break off and grab a pizza slice before I could. Sometimes he'd sprint ahead and trigger a wave of foot soldiers I wasn't ready for, and I'd feel that familiar irritation rise. And then, like Logan used to, Mikey would double back. He'd run a little circle around Leonardo. He'd stop, facing the exact direction you'd stand if you were waiting for a friend. If that was my brain pattern matching on coincidence, it was good at its job. I could have stopped. I could have pulled the cartridge, put it back in its case, and slid it on the shelf next to the others. Instead, I kept playing. There was something horribly comforting about it, in the way picking a barely healed scab can be comforting if you're not thinking about why. One night, while on the stage Bury My Shell at Wounded Knee, things changed. If you never played it, that's the Old West stage. Train cars rattling across the desert, stylized rock formations in the background, foot soldiers in cowboy hats for no reason other than the vibe. It had been one of our favorites. Logan always did this stupid whistle over the music and pretended the turtles were about to rob the train for pizza money. This time, the music sounded slightly off. Not wrong enough that I could point to what changed, just a half step too slow, like someone had dropped the pitch of the cartridge a few %. We fought our way through the first few cars like normal. Foot soldiers spawned, got tossed around, turned into that little flash of light and sound when they blinked out of existence. Michelangelo was unusually quiet. No random jumping, no extra flourish, throw-to-screen moves. Just efficient, almost careful play. Midway through the level, there's a stretch where the train roof is empty, a little lull before the next fight. We cleared the last wave before it, knocked the final foot soldier off the side, and the screen went still. Leo stood on the left, katanas at the ready. Mikey stood on the right. The go arrow at the top didn't appear. Okay, I muttered, half to the TV, half to Logan if he was there. Glitch time? I moved Leonardo to the right. He walked until he was nearly shoulder to shoulder with Michelangelo. Mikey didn't move. I nudged him, thinking maybe this was another "you're dragging the screen" situation. Leo's sprite bumped against his side. No reaction. My thumbs slipped on the plastic. I tried to swallow, and the sound came out loud in the quiet, like the room was listening. "Come on," I said. "Don't start this." On the HUD, both life bars sat side by side, green, nearly full. Then, without anything happening on the screen, player 2's started to shrink, one line at a time. There was no hit animation, no sound effect, no enemy, just that thin bars ratcheting down, click, 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 like a slow loading gauge in reverse. I mashed buttons. No response. Michelangelo didn't attack, didn't jump, didn't move. He just stared straight ahead, frozen in his idle pose, while his health drained away. The controller creaked when my grip tightened. "Move," I said. "Logan, move." The name came out before I could think to stop it. The bar hit yellow, then red, then one tiny sliver. The last segment of health disappeared. Michelangelo stumbled, fell back, and collapsed on the roof, as if he'd taken a hit that hadn't actually happened. The little "life lost" icon flashed next to his portrait, but no new life popped in. No "press start to continue." Just the orange bandana turtle lying there, motionless, while his portrait dimmed to grayscale. The camera did not pan. The go arrow did not appear. Leonardo's life bar was untouched. I tried to walk away to the right to push the screen forward the way you always do in those old brawlers. Leo stopped as soon as his feet reached Michelangelo's body. It was like there was an invisible wall there. I tried jumping over him. Leo leapt, landed on the other side, took 2 steps forward, and then hit something I couldn't see. No matter what I did, I couldn't move more than a few pixels past player 2's downed sprite. I doubled back and tried going left. The camera wouldn't scroll. We were locked in that little segment of train roof, the rest of the level taunting us just off screen. "Fine," I said. The words came out in little pieces. "Fine, you win. Now what?" I put Leo right next to Michelangelo, as close as the collision detection would allow. I stopped moving. Nothing happened. I almost turned the console off. My thumb actually pressed down on the power switch a little, making the red light flicker before I let go. Instead, I did something I'm not proud of. I counted. I stood there on the roof of that stupid 16-bit train, my dead friend's turtle at my feet, and counted in my head. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. At around 30, the background music started to detune. The notes wobbled, stretching slightly out of key. Somewhere around 50, a faint hiss crept in under the track, like static ground into the recording. The game wasn't supposed to make sounds like that. It didn't have a CD to scratch. At exactly the point my brain reached 60, the screen flashed white. No transition, no fade. One hard frame of white, bright enough to light the room. And in that blink, I felt something stand up behind me, like the couch had finally given up its impression. When the picture came back, Leonardo was alone on the train. Michelangelo's sprite was gone. His life bar, everything. The level resumed as if it had always been a one-player game, the go arrow finally popping up at the top with infuriating cheerfulness. I dropped the controller like it had burned me. It hit the carpet with a soft thud and bounced once, the cord snapping against the stand. On the screen, Leo stood there, breathing in his tiny loop, waiting for input that wasn't coming. Some small, stupid part of me thought, at least it let me stay with him this time. I turned the console off. The TV went black, leaving me staring at my own reflection in the glass, faint and warped by the curve. For half a second, I thought I saw someone standing behind me next to the couch, but when I spun around, the room was empty. That was the last time I played Turtles in Time. You expect some dramatic, clean break after something like that. Me throwing the cartridge away, smashing it, burying it. Real life is quieter. I put the game back in its plastic case, slid it into the stack on the shelf, and went to bed. A week later, a friend from down the street showed up with his own controller in his hand, like it was still the summer before. He held it out to me. The cord swung once and tapped his knee, soft plastic on denim, and my stomach dropped anyway. 2 players? He said. I heard myself answer too fast. Port's busted, I said. Sometimes it doesn't read player 2. It wasn't even a good lie. He looked past me at the TV like he could see the truth sitting there. Then he nodded, slow, and tucked the controller back under his arm. He still came around for a while after that, but the invites got fewer. By the time school started again, we were waving from opposite sidewalks like strangers. The next time my mom did a big closet clean-out, the whole stack went into a box, and the box went into the attic. I went to college, got a job, bought newer consoles that didn't need you to blow in them to work. My freshman year, the student union had a beat-up arcade cabinet shoved in a corner. Old brawler, joystick, plastic buttons, the kind of thing you played while waiting for laundry. One night I walked past it, and the attractive screen brightened as if to get my attention. For a second, the insert coin/press start prompt for player 2 pulsed on and off, slow, patient, while the corner of my eye kept insisting there was someone standing where the second set of controls were. I didn't stop to see what it wanted. I kept walking with my hands jammed in my pockets, pretending the hair on my arms wasn't lifting. After that, I started dodging co-op without meaning to. Friends would ask if I wanted to jump into something split screen, and I'd say I was busy, or bad at shooters, or more of a single-player guy nowadays. All technically true, none of them the real reason. Even when there were plenty of seats, I'd drift to the left side of the couch. I'd leave the right cushion empty without thinking. An old habit, like my body was saving space for an input that never came. Every once in a while, I'd see a copy of Turtles in Time in a retro shop or some collector's booth at a convention. I'd pick it up, feel the familiar weight of the cart in my hand, and put it back down. You couldn't pay me enough to find out what it did on someone else's machine. Years later, closer to now than to then, I bought a modern system, the kind that dings and tells you what your friends are doing. It came with all the usual features: digital storefront, online multiplayer, a cheerful little notification in the corner whenever someone joined your game. They did a big retro beat-em-up collection one year. I don't have to tell you what was headlining the trailer. Time travel, sewer levels, cowabunga shouted in crisp, remastered audio. Nostalgia for sale. I didn't buy it. I told myself it was overpriced. Instead, I downloaded some other co-op game because my coworkers were on a kick about it. 4 players, online matches, everyone with a headset and too much to say. I stayed in single player, running through tutorial missions, relearning the feel of having more than one life bar on a screen again. At some point, a little box slid into the top right corner of the TV. Player 2 has joined. The message should have been nothing. White text, gray background, the kind of thing you stop noticing after a while. But before my brain could even process it, I heard it. A single plastic click behind me. Not loud, not dramatic, just the sound of a button being tested, like someone checking if it still worked. My shoulders jumped. The headset cord scraped my collar as I turned. The room was empty. The right side of the couch held nothing but a shallow dent in the cushion, like it remembered weight. I looked down at the coffee table anyway. One controller. The other one was still in its packaging in a drawer across the room. I opened the system menu, checked the devices list. One connected controller, no guests, nothing. When I flipped back to the game, the notification was gone. My character stood alone in the empty lobby, waiting, like it had been waiting for me to admit something. I backed out of the match, then I backed out of the party chat. My friends from work messaged, asking where I went. I typed some excuse about my connection and hit send with a thumb attached to a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. After a few more nights of me disconnecting, the invites slowed down. One friend stopped asking altogether. Losing Logan hurt. Losing people I could still keep because I was afraid of an empty second slot hurt in a quieter, uglier way. It happened again a few months later in a completely different game. I was alone in a bright, cheerful platformer when the screen dimmed for half a second and the console chimed. Player 2 has joined. My fingers lifted off the buttons on their own. I stared at the corner until my eyes watered, waiting for a follow-up. It never came. I wish I could tell you that was the only weird thing. It's not. Sometimes, when I'm in a matchmaking lobby with other people, I'll see a name pop up in the list of players, some randomly generated guest handle or a string of letters that looks like gibberish, and my brain will read it as Logan, even when it's not. My fingers will hover over the invite button like I'm supposed to do something. And sometimes, in modern games that let you drop in a second player locally, a little "press start to join" prompt will flicker at the top of the screen when I'm not sitting near the controller at all. It always disappears when I look straight at it. I haven't owned a working SNES in years. The old console in my parents' attic probably rotted itself into silence a long time ago. Whatever I saw on that train roof was just old code and a tired brain, patched over by grief, wearing Logan's patterns like a mask. That's what I tell myself, usually right before I check the corner of the screen again. I still can't bring myself to pick up a second controller when there's nobody sitting next to me. And I still wait every time a new game boots to see if the cursor lands on 2 players before I touch anything.
Some hauntings live in the code. This one lives in between spaces. In the empty space on the right side of the couch, where the fabric stays a little smoother, like it never gets the chance to wrinkle. On paper, the cartridge is innocent. Manuals, guides, developer notes. None of them mention a ghost in port 2. And still, I keep stories where the screen insists on company. A second slot lighting up. A polite message that says someone has joined when no one has even reached for the controller. You can call it lag, drift. A notification arriving late, like mail delivered to the wrong house. But here is the clearer truth. Grief is a co-op habit. It trains your hands to expect help, to wait for a nudge, to leave room for a second set of inputs. When that second hand is gone, the habit doesn't vanish. It just keeps reaching. And sometimes the machine, dumb plastic, bright screen, obedient menus, mistakes that reaching for a signal. Or maybe, once in a while, something reaches back. If you're ever sitting alone, controller warm in your palms, and your screen quietly announces that player 2 has joined, don't look at the corner first. Look at the space beside you. Because the question isn't whether the game is haunted. The question is whether you've been playing alone long enough to notice.